Let me show you where you'll be working. I led Emma, our latest hire, down the sterile corridor toward the unassuming office. Bold letters labeled the room. Dispatch. I held open the door and gestured. After you. Thank you, sir, Emma said. For the last time, Trevor is fine. Trav even. She gave a nod of uneasy gratitude before stepping into the organized chaos. A horseshoe desk took up the center of the room, penning in 2 chairs behind an array of computer monitors. Open files lay scattered about the desk. Overstuffed filing cabinets and sagging bookshelves lined the left and right walls. The back of the room was a floor-to-ceiling window. It's a mess, I know. A regular disaster piece worthy of a place in the Metropolitan Museum of Mayhem. I grinned. Enormous. Emma walked around the desk, drawn to the window and the view beyond. Rather than a glimpse outside, it offered a vantage point of the beating heart of our organization. Ah, yes, that's where the magic happens, so to speak. I joined her by the glass. A green door set in a natural-looking rock face stood at the end of the football field-length room. What is it? Her breath fogged the window, now just inches from her lips. The green door, I said. That's where the travelers come through, with news from the future, timelines and histories that will never happen. And we study them? That's right. Our briefings to Summit help prevent those less desirable timelines from coming to pass. We call them suboptimal scenarios, SOS for short. I think I understand the job perfectly fine. Emma cleared her throat and straightened her pencil skirt and blazer. I mean, more like, how does it, how does time travel actually work? Yeah. I half laughed. No idea. None of us do. She turned away from the window and furrowed her brow. But you've got to know. I shook my head. Only the travelers have ever been behind the green door. Time travel is their dirty little secret. Come on, you can't be telling me you've never tried to get a peek. She grinned. Never, I said. Well, I thought I had Danny drunk enough to show me once. Then he played the meanest prank you can imagine. I opened my eyes and I stopped myself mid-sentence. And that's a story HR would prefer I keep to myself. He was kind enough to tell me it's not personal, just that if we knew, it'd be bad. A harsh alarm tone blared from the intercom, cutting off our conversation. Caution lights bathed the cavernous room with a pulsing red glow. The knob jiggled, and the green door opened. Speak of the devil, I said. There's Danny now. I pointed down at the ant-sized man, stepping out from the space beyond. He opened the door just wide enough to squeeze through, without offering anyone else a look at what lay on the other side. He pulled the door shut behind him, then tugged the doorknob. He gave a thumbs up to the small crowd of guards in head-to-toe hazard suits, waiting at an uneasy distance. That's the all-clear signal. All clear? Every scenario is different, I explained. It's important to make sure they're not tracking in fallout, or God forbid, some new plague. The safety team backed off. In their place, a dozen clipboard wielders accosted the man as he began the long walk to the room's main exit, just beneath our window. What's going on there? Emma asked. The mission debrief, I said. That's Danny's team. They're responsible for keeping track of his personal calendar, doctor's appointments, haircuts, anniversaries. That's really necessary? Well, sure. Travelers sometimes spend months, even years, in the alternate scenario before they gather enough information to prevent it and come home. I rapped my knuckle on the glass and waved. Danny looked up, gave a half-hearted smile, and returned the gesture. While his clothes looked worn and filthy, Danny looked the same as he had the day before. There was no wild castaway beard, nor overgrown mane. His hair was still unkempt and black, without a touch of gray. Only his eyes ever showed signs of age. They looked either vacant or feral, depending on whether he was speaking. The man had probably lived a half-dozen lifetimes just since I met him. I took the next half hour showing Emma the filing system and walking her through the basics of drafting a scenario dossier. The past ones read like stories, not history reports, I explained. The technical details go in the preventative steps section at the end. Within an hour, Danny let himself into the office. "Hey, Trev." He pulled me in for a firm hug. "How was the trip?" I asked. "Sadder than usual too." His eyes fell to the floor. "Sorry to hear." He sighed. "It's alright." Then he turned to find Emma practically clinging to his elbow, looking up at him with dumbstruck awe. "Who's this?" "Oh, I'm Emma." She held out her hand sheepishly. Then he took it. "Pleasure to meet you." "I think I actually recognize you," she said. "You get your coffee from City Market. You were there yesterday." Then he cracked a smile. "I like to treat myself whenever I'm back. It feels like I haven't been there in ages. But if you say I was there yesterday, your time, I believe you." "Huh." "What?" he asked. "I didn't picture you having a normal life outside of all this, being a time traveler." "I guess I just don't see myself as a time traveler." Then he said. "How do you see it?" Then he shrugged. "I just live, day in day out, knowing that my best days and experiences could wind up getting erased." "Erased?" He pointed out the window to the green door. "Back there, we've got a master plan. We call it the ideal scenario, a perfect roadmap between here and the end. If the world strays too far from the path, I have to document what went wrong, what should be done instead, and come back with your warning." He held up a well-worn field journal. Countless sunsets, special moments, whatever, all erased every time I turn one of these in. My memories are all that's left of them. Emma looked around the room. "And our files. And our files." Then he echoed. I broke the uncomfortable silence by clearing my throat. "Must have been a short trip, if those are your notes. Just one journal?" I reached for the book, but then he held it out of reach. "Not this time, Trev. Code 23. This one goes right to Summit. I was just stopping in to say hi. We'll catch up later." "Rocco's?" Then he shook his head. "Oh, come on. I've been dying to try it. Don't tell me I wind up hating it." "Afraid so. We'll hit O'Shea's. You'll say the outside looks dumpy, but it's authentic and has this gorgeous courtyard with a stage for live music. Place is packed, and the band absolutely nails this cover off." "Ah, stop!" I held up both my hands. "I'm sold. You know how I feel about getting too deep into spoilers." "Fair enough. I'll meet you there." Then he said, "You're free to come to Emma." The new hire shook her head. "Another time, you two should catch up." "Well, I'm looking forward to working with you." Then he gave another half-hearted wave before ducking back out into the hall. The door clicked shut. "Man, talk about a double-edged sword," Emma said. "What?" "A friend who can nudge you away from bad choices, but has memories of all these things you don't." "We make it work," I said. "Anyhow, I was hoping to show you what one of the traveler's journals actually looked like, but not this time." Emma sank into one of the office chairs. "Yeah, what's that about?" "Sometimes travelers find themselves in an extra thorny situation. We call it a Code 23, I explained. It means one of us working here somehow knocks us off track of the ideal scenario and puts the world in danger. Does it happen often? No, very rare. I can only think of 1 or 2 cases. I never imagined the third of its kind would be me. I wish someone had thought to give me a heads up before I brought Emma to the break room for lunch. Hey, that's you! Emma pointed at a new poster tacked to the bulletin board. The black and white picture featured my face, probably scraped from the employee ID photo I wasn't quite prepared to take. A nervous smile, my dated glasses, and the wrinkled polo shirt I'd forgotten to iron that morning. Bold letters above and below the image warned, "Protect the mission. Don't tell Trevor." A quick trip to human resources confirmed I wasn't being fired. While I certainly felt like the office pariah, they assured me my termination wasn't being discussed. Quite the opposite. "You're not going anywhere," our heavy-set HR rep assured me. "In fact, we can't let you." She slid a sheet of paper to me across her desk. "What's this?" "You'll need to resubmit all time-off requests. Summit will approve them directly." "You're joking." "Can't joke about this. It's that sensitive. We need to be sure you don't go anywhere, or anyone that would. Well," she adjusted her cat eye glasses. "Other than that, just try to keep things business as usual. Keep up the good work and ignore the posters." That alone might have been doable, disconcerting as it was to see my own face staring back at me in every other hallway. What stung was the shifty-eyed glances from co-workers and the not-so-subtle power-walking they did to avoid conversing with me. My outlook didn't improve when I returned home. I found a white truck idling in front of my building. Movers unloaded big black trunks, carrying them up the stoop and through the peeling double doors. I squeezed past them in the narrow hallways to find them bound for the apartment opposite mine. The door was wide open. Inside, I couldn't see any furniture, aside from a pair of desks kitted out with high-tech workstations. Cables snaked across the floor, linking the computers with other equipment that lay half-packed in heavy-duty plastic containers. Gone were traces of my old neighbor, Tracy, including her now somewhat ironic comeback with a worn doormat. One of the men inside spotted me snooping and pulled the door shut with a disapproving grunt. What the hell was that about? The exchange had me on high alert by the time I stepped inside my own home. If I hadn't been, I may not have noticed the changes. Little things that weren't quite right. My couch, for example, felt farther from the wall than it should have. My old computer booted up a little too fast, and my bedside lamp looked dim. All of it could have been chalked off to imagination. Until I went to make myself a cup of decaf. My retro red coffee maker had been a kitchen staple since sophomore year of college. The thing was reliable and ancient. I pressed the brew button so many times, the letters had actually faded off. That's how I knew the device currently occupying its place on the counter was not my coffee maker. I glared at those 4 crisp new letters, BREW, until it clicked. I yanked the power cord out of the wall and smashed the damn thing on the floor. I was only half an hour late to O'Shea's. Danny was right. I did think the place looked dumpy, arriving just in time to catch the band's first set. Danny was waiting for me with 2 pint glasses of Guinness, sitting close to the stage beneath a web of string lights. Seating like this was customary for our outings. Loud music made it tough to eavesdrop. Any sane person who did overhear our conversations about work would naturally assume they misheard us. "Hey, there he is. I got your first round." Danny pushed one of the 2 pint glasses toward me. It scraped across the metal patio table. I didn't say anything, just reached into my pocket and placed the plastic bag between us. Inside was a tiny cylinder the size of a pencil eraser, connected to a handful of thin wires. "What's that?" he asked. "Camera. Found it inside my coffee maker," I said. Well, my new coffee maker, because someone did God knows what with the old one. "Trev?" "But I'm sure that's got nothing to do with my new neighbors. cagey bunch of guys. Seemed to be packing pretty heavy. Trevor? Just tell me what it is, man. What did I do? What do I do? Then he propped his elbows on the table, wringing his hands. He couldn't quite meet my eye when he said, "You ended the world." Like I get into a car accident that makes a diplomat late for peace talks, and that leads to the next world war. He turned to meet my gaze. No. Your direct actions caused our end of day scenario in the future I just got back from. Me? I had to stifle a laugh. I'm a data guy, a history geek. I couldn't end the world if I wanted to. Yeah, well, consider yourself our own resident horseman of the apocalypse. My thoughts went to Summit. Their agents undoubtedly watching my every move. And finally, why haven't they killed me yet? Wouldn't be the first time they took out a shit starter before they got the chance. Can't. Then he said, "Why?" "Because I told them they couldn't." He folded his arms and leaned back into his chair. A smirk flitted across his face. "Told them that killing you causes the exact same outcome." "Is that really true? Or are you just protecting me?" "You sure you want to know?" I chewed my lip, thinking it over. "Then, why not just tell me what I did? I could promise not to do it. I'm loyal. My way would sure save Summit's not-so-secretive team a whole lot of work." "Nah, you know we can't do that." "You think I'd end the world on purpose?" "You? Today? Right now?" No. "But what about when you're feeling low, or isolated and depressed?" He asked. Anyone can play the noble saint when they're impotent. But all-powerful? He took a swig of his beer. I wouldn't trust myself. "You?" He was right, of course. Before I could tell him as much, I spotted something that gave me pause. A few tables behind Danny, a patron kept casting shifty glances toward me, pretending to sip his drink. "Been nursing that beer for how long now?" I muttered. Danny didn't even look. "That'd be Clark, one of your new babysitters. Get used to him, because Summit won't let you out of their sights for a long, long time. You start getting out of bounds, so to speak. They'll intervene." I grimaced and made a finger gun gesture, pointed toward my temple. "No, nothing like that. If you weren't looking for them, you'd never know they were there. Ideally, they'll keep you in check with little nudges. Poorly timed traffic lights, missed elevators, friends changing your evening plans at the last minute." He prattled on, but my mind wandered. Had O'Shea's been a course correction too? What would have happened if we had gone to our planned venue? "But you have to leave the cameras alone, alright? No more broken coffee makers." "Fine. A couple years, and we'll all be laughing about this, right?" I asked. "Sure, Trev." Danny smiled, sadly. I've gotten used to the constant surveillance. My panicked, hypervigilant brain eventually passed its breaking point. The subconscious alarm bells have stopped, and I've gotten used to the feeling of being watched. I wonder if I'd feel naked without it. My coworkers eventually warmed up to me again, save for a few conversations ending in hasty backpedaling. What never went away though, is the gnawing question. What did I do? Sometimes I find myself tensing up in anticipation, expecting one of the Summit goons to tackle me. Another thought haunts me though. What if, when the moment comes, when I'm fated to end the world, they aren't fast enough to stop me?